let's talk about how to even know where you should grow. Well, I've got to start by telling you about a time that God took me through, how do I say this? A wilderness, a desert place. It wasn't good, okay? The environment was not good. It was this season. It was maybe about, 4 to 5 months long. It felt like an eternity at the time, where one thing after another, I just kept being wronged. Like truly, y'all, this was not just my opinion. It wasn't just I was being sensitive or I misunderstood something. It was like one thing after another. I was being slighted. I was being offended. I was being wronged. I was being misunderstood. Someone else got credit for something I did. Someone talked bad about me. It was like one thing after another. And just when I thought, this can't get any worse, like what is going on? The hits just kept on coming. It was this season of God stripping me of whatever pride, whatever felt like dignity at the time that I had left. And I started to get angry and I started to get frustrated with God going, God, what are you doing? Because you couldn't make this up, y'all. Like it was such a consistent pattern and theme during that season that it had to be on purpose. Like it wasn't a coincidence. God was up to something. It was not a fun something. I didn't enjoy whatever he was up to, but it was definitely on purpose. And I remember one day, as I was praying and frustrated, something had just happened again where I was very clearly wronged, very clearly taken advantage of or misunderstood or something. And I remember crying out to God and saying, God, what are you doing? Like, what is going on? This is happening again and again and again. Like, what is going on? And I remember God spoke to me in that moment. And this may sound crazy to you, but y'all, I felt this gentle whisper of words that I would never think on my own. And here's what I heard in my spirit. Christy, I know that you can stand up and speak up, but can you sit down and shut up? Yeah, God said that to me. Has he ever said that to you? Like, can you shut up? That's a clue. You might have something to work on. God said, I know you can stand up and speak up, but can you sit down and shut up? I know you can fight, but can you take it? Can you turn the other cheek? That's what I want to know. God was doing something in that season for sure. And the biggest takeaway for me from that season was that God was shining a massive spotlight on where I needed to grow. There are attributes of this life that I am really good at. There are callings in scripture to, be an advocate for change and stand up for what's right. And I'm good at those things. But the virtues about gentleness, patience, forgiveness again and again and again, that's hard for a fighter like me. That's my personality, right? God was shining a magnifying glass in that season on the areas that I needed to grow. And I'm not done. I still have growth to do, just like you do. But here's what I've noticed, and I used to do this as well. It's very tempting to use our personality as an excuse for acting a certain way. Well, that's just how God made me. Sorry. I'm just that type of person. That's my personality type. I'm an Enneagram whatever number. So that's why I act that way. Sorry, that's just how I am. It's just who I am. We use this as an excuse to be a jerk, to misbehave, to mistreat people, to take advantage of people. You might be a free spirit. You say, well, sorry, I'm late all the time. I'm just a free spirit. It's so crazy. I'm just a free spirit. I don't know how to read a clock. No, you're arrogant because you think your time is more important than the person waiting on you. That's not a free spirit. Or maybe you're just hot-headed. Anybody like me? Quick-tempered? Sorry, I'm an Enneagram 8, just so angry all the time. Let me tell you something. Having a quick temper is not a sign of your personality. It's a sign of immaturity. It's a lack of self-control. Ouch, does that hurt? It hurts me, but that's the truth. Or maybe you think, I'm just such a giver. I just say yes to everybody all the time. I'm just such a giver. I can't help it. It's my personality. I'm such a giver. But what you do is you say yes to 5,000 things and you only show up for a couple of them. Your word doesn't mean anything. You're dishonest. You're not just a giver, you're dishonest because your yes doesn't mean yes and your no doesn't mean no and your word doesn't mean anything. That's not your personality. That's a deficiency. And you have them and I have them. Whenever we start to look at our blind spots, when we begin to lean into to our weaknesses, to the things that we're not good at, which is not fun, I understand. But when we do that, we open up so many opportunities for growth, to grow in maturity, to grow in wisdom, to grow in our faith, to grow into a person that people want to be around, to grow into a person that people want to make plans with because you're going to be on time. You grow into the type of person where people actually want to be honest with you and give you honest, good feedback that can help you because you're not going to flip out on them in anger. We can grow when we know where we need to grow, and we all have areas to grow in. So I want to give you some specific things that you can do that are going to help you identify what these blind spots are, okay? These are things I have used in my life, I have used in coaching people, and they're really simple and practical, and you can put them into practice today. Number 1, identify patterns. Look back on your life. Look back on your past. What are some patterns you see? Is there an occurrence that comes up again and again, a problem you run into again and again, a frustration you see happening again and again and again? That's not a coincidence, because you know what? The common denominator in all those situations is you. I don't know. Maybe there's something you're doing to contribute to that. If you're in one unhealthy relationship after another, I would argue it's not that person's fault at that point or those people's fault. It's yours because you keep going into unhealthy relationships. So what's going on in you that needs to grow or change or improve to create a better new cycle for a healthy relationship? If you see patterns and you identify this happens again and again and again, you can understand that while it's maybe not all your fault and maybe not all your responsibility, there is a common denominator in those situations, and that is you. That can help you reflect with a new level of objectivity, with a new perspective to say, okay, what am I doing to contribute to this thing happening over and over and over again? That's the first tip to help you identify your blind spots, to identify patterns. The second thing that I want you to do is think about things that offend you. Now, I know this sounds silly, but when you begin to look at things that offend you, things that get you riled up, things that are trigger points for you or hot button issues, we all have them. When you begin to look at that, it actually gives you insight into you. What's going on in you that's such a big deal? What's going on in you that this thing that doesn't seem to bother anyone else really bothers you? Is there a fear there? Is there something going on below the surface? Is that something from your past? Is that a wound? Is that something in you? Because often it is. Typically our anger or things that offend us actually give us insight into who we are and areas we need to grow. Fears we need to deal with, issues, baggage we need to deal with. It comes out as being offended at this thing, and we think the object of our anger is the problem. It might be. There might be layers that we need to dig into and we can dig into in order to grow. And the third thing that you can do to identify your blind spots is the hardest. In fact, when I say this, you're not going to want to do it. Most of you won't. So I've got a challenge for you. I challenge you to commit to following this last tip before I tell you what it is. Can you do that? Come on, I like to get a commitment before I tell you, because then, you're more likely to follow through. Here's your third tip. Ask for feedback. Oh, it's so hard, y'all. It's so hard to ask other people, how am I doing? Hey, where's an area that I can grow? What's a blind spot that I have that I'm not aware of? Ask your spouse, hey, how can I be a better wife or husband to you? Ask your kids. Hey, how can I be a better mom? You might not like the answer. They might have some crazy ideas. So just take that for what it's worth. Ask your leader. Ask your team. Hey, how can I do better? Many people have noticed that the Ramsey personalities have been present on the Dave Ramsey show much more recently. We're always on there every single week, kind of trading places, each of us are, to co-host with Dave Ramsey. And it's so difficult to ask him at the end of 3 hours of being on together, hey, how could I have done better? How'd I do? What can I work on? Not just, how did I do? Give me compliments. What can I work on? I know I can work on something. I wasn't perfect. I haven't arrived. How can I be better? It is so hard to ask that question. But if you don't ask, you don't know. And if you don't know, you can't grow. So whether you're asking your bosses or your team members or your family or your friends, ask for feedback. Don't just say, how am I doing? Because they may just give you nice compliments. Say, how can I grow? What can I work on? How can I be a better person? And then listen to their advice. If you do these 3 things, you will not only identify your blind spots, but you'll be able to start to work on them, because you can't fix something that you don't know exists. But what's so great is, as you identify this, you really can grow, not only as a person, but grow into the person I believe that you were created to be.